Numbers of the candidates, numbers 1, 2, and 3, was decided by a drawing from a hat. So let me introduce to you the candidates. Number 1 this evening, Christine Whitman. She is a former freeholder in Somerset County and a former candidate for U.S. Senate against Bill Bradley and a former president of the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. Candidate number 2, Cary Edwards. He is a former New Jersey Attorney General and Chief Counsel to New Jersey Governor Tom Kean. Candidate number 3, Jim Wallwork. Mr. Wallwork is a New Jersey businessman, a former member of the New Jersey General Assembly, and a 14-year veteran of the New Jersey State Senate. Welcome, candidates, and thank you very much for joining in this debate. The United We Stand America New Jersey chapter was instrumental in convening this forum tonight. They have conducted membership meetings and surveys around the state, and they have determined that voters in the Garden State are looking for candidate responses in 4 general areas. And I will start with those areas. Ms. Whitman, you are candidate number 1. You will have the first question. You will have 60 seconds to answer it. There may be a follow-up. Your opponents will have 30 seconds to rebut. Your question: how can we stop the spiral of taxes and spending and bring the state in line with the economic growth or contraction of the economy and job base in the state?
The most important thing that we must do for the state of New Jersey right now is to bring the cost of government under control and the ever-increasing expansion of government. Now, there's several ways to do that, and what I have proposed in my economic revival blueprint for the state of New Jersey is that we first go through every state agency and do a performance audit of that agency to see not just how much money it's spending, how it's spending the money, but why it's spending the money, where it's spending the money, and is it spending the money on things that we want it to spend it on, doing for us what we want it to do for us, not to us what government thinks it should be doing to us. Now, once we have done that, we can make the kind of intelligent cuts that will allow us to start to roll back the remaining $2.2 billion that Jim Florio has instituted on the voters of the state of New Jersey. But we're not going to cut our way to $2.2 billion exclusively. We have got to understand that we also have to expand economic growth, and that means revisiting our regulations, revisiting our fines, fees, and penalties so that we can encourage business to prosper in the state of New Jersey and create jobs.
A follow-up, Ms. Whitman: should all bids for government services be open and competitively bid?
I have supported what the governor has only belatedly chosen to do, which is to open to a competitive bidding process the awards of contracts and grants. We cannot allow any further expansion of the bonded indebtedness of the state of New Jersey to be done in secret, not open to the public. That is something that I believe is very, very wrong, and we have got to change that process. So I support that. I have also called for redoing the disclosure forms, because if they had had the rules that we'd had under Tom Kean, Joe Salima would never have been allowed to have put his stock in Armico into a blind trust. It wouldn't have worked.
Mr. Edwards, your response.
Thank you, Rolland. New Jersey state government is fundamentally broken and needs to be fixed. We do not get the services we pay our taxes for. 11 months ago, I proposed taking the appointed auditor, making him an elected auditor, and doing performance audits so we know what we're getting for the dollars we're paying. No one can tell you. We don't need any more studies and commissions to do it on a one-shot basis. It needs to be institutionalized. And the taxpayers of the state of New Jersey, the taxpayers, just like stockholders in a private corporation, should be selecting that auditor, not the legislature. And we should be doing measurements of how we perform. And we don't do that now. Nowhere in state government can anybody tell you the precise performance, what we get for what we pay, and how we, the taxpayers, dollars are in fact being used. This direct election of the state order is a constitutional change that I think is absolutely essential to institutionalizing within government, notwithstanding who the governor may be. We come in, governors come, they do studies, they find a couple $100 million, and they go away. Texas institutionalized it, saved 15% of their budget by institutionalizing performance audits.
Time is up. Thank you. Mr. Wallwork, your rebuttal.
Thank you, Rolland. I'm a conservative businessman. I've run a business successfully for 25 years. I know how to cut the budget. I'm the only candidate that said I will repeal every dime of the Florio $2.2 billion tax increase. That's a 4% cut over the first 4 years of my administration. I will use the line item veto. We have to reduce state spending and cut taxes so the private sector can begin to grow. We have to cut the unnecessary rules and regulations out for business, because when we begin to grow in the private sector, provide jobs, provide hope for people, then with reduced tax bases, we're going to have more money coming in to be able to fund the necessary governmental activities that we have in the state of New Jersey. So as a conservative businessman, I want less taxes, less spending, and less government. And I might add, Rolland, that I sponsored, when I was in the state Senate, a bill to establish competitive bidding for bonds, for professional services such as architects' fees, engineering fees, and public relations. Had they followed what I proposed when I was in the Senate, we wouldn't have this mess today.
Time's up. Thank you. Mr. Edwards, your question. How can the taxpayers get a clear, comprehensible picture of how our tax dollars are being spent without accounting practices that reduce the value to the public or hide long-term implications of current decisions?
Well, I think it's a carry forward to what I was talking about before. I've had experience in the private sector business and in life, and I've been on the board of directors of corporations. Stockholders choose, for very good reason in stock exchange companies, the auditor. Management doesn't choose it. Right now, management's choosing that auditor, and frankly, as I've been there and tried to put together budgets, I never had any factual information about how our tax dollars were in fact being spent. We react to crisis, we react to a one-time study about waste and abuse in certain agencies, but we don't know if we ever get service for the taxes that we pay. I fixed the division of motor vehicles. I have the experience and ability to fix state government that is badly broken. We need performance audits. The existing auditor should do it, but we should amend the Constitution to institutionalize it permanently, because it's a permanent flaw in our governmental process.
Ms. Whitman, your rebuttal.
Rebuttal? My response is very clearly, I think that's just adding another layer of government. We have the ability right now to do the kind of performance audits for which I've been calling. We can do it two ways. There are entities within state government that can perform those functions now, and we can contract with the private sector. One of the things that we've got to be looking at in order to control the rate of growth of government is how can we introduce public-private partnerships, and where can we successfully privatize? Those are the only kinds of things. If we don't start moving in those directions, we are never going to get government under control. We can't have the same answer of just adding another layer. We've got to be more creative.
Mr. Wallwork, your rebuttal.
Well, I think quickly there's only one thing the governor has to do, and that's use the line item veto. I'm prepared to use the line item veto. I spent 16 years in the legislature. I was on the Appropriations Committee. I know the state budget. I'm going to go after places such as the political pension system, the unnecessary jobs that have been created and plugged into state government that are stifling even the civil service people. I'm going to go after the politicians' pensions. I'm going to go after the Violent Crimes Compensation Board, where they spend $3 million to help people, but they have $2 million for salaries and expenses. This is crazy. Those are the types of things I'm going after.
All right, Mr. Wallwork, your question. How can we ensure that the power of financial contributions in campaigns and the election process are not allowed to influence the decisions and policies of the governing process?
Well, so far as I'm concerned, we should only have political operation committees, PAC committees, by a candidate running. There should be no candidates, non-political programs, because when you have a candidate raising money who's not running for office but has a campaign committee on the side, that's an abuse. I think Mrs. Whitman was wrong. She had her Affordable New Jersey. She raised thousands of dollars and gave it to legislators. Those legislators today are supporting Mrs. Whitman. That's buying political influence. If I'm governor, we're not going to have that type of a political action committee. We're only going to have an action committee for a politician when that person is running for public office. So when the monies are recorded and the monies then are spent, they'll be audited and it'll be a public record. That's the only way to keep a safe, clean system. So I strongly support support that. I do not support the so-called non-political operating committees, because these are politicians raising money, and that money goes into their pocket to buy shirts, to buy automobiles, or do whatever they want to do, nothing to do with their campaigns.
Mr. Wallwork, a follow-up on that. How can we require our elected servants to be ethical and honest and responsive to their constituents and not to favor the special interest money groups?
Well, I think that that's up to the voters to determine what the public is doing. I think that when we raise campaign monies, those monies have to be recorded, properly so, and then the people can make the judgment as to who's spent the money, where the money has come from, and what the candidate is doing. I certainly feel that lobbyists down in Trenton do have an unusual amount of money to spread around. When I was in the state senate, I didn't deal with lobbyists. Lobbyists knew that I was out of bounds, and I'm proud of that record. I've been criticized in the past, frankly, but I stood up to the lobbyists. Certainly will do the same as governor.
Mr. Edwards, a rebuttal.
We in New Jersey are very fortunate in the governor's race, and we have campaign spending limits, contribution limits, and we have spending limits, and we also have campaign financing. So we're not dependent on special interest groups at the governor's level. Very recently, within the last 60 days, there was an amendment to 90 days with an amendment to our elections to start dealing with the PAC commissions based on a Rosenthal commission. I'm very anxious to see how well that's working as we go through this first election cycle. We cannot have special interest controlling elected officials, but you still must have a vehicle in a free society in which people can raise dollars so they can adequately run for public office and deliver their message.
Time's up. Ms. Whitman, your rebuttal.
Well, since the Senate race, I have not taken special interest PAC money, and I don't take special interest PAC money now. And that keeps a very good distance between special interests and my campaign. It's another reason why I support initiative and referendum. That's one way to get around so that the legislators are directly responsive to the people and not to the special interests. And when I was down there lobbying for the passage of that initiative and referendum bill in the last session, it was amazing to see how many of the special interest lobbyists were down there saying, you can't do this, it's going to destroy the democratic process. It was clear it was just easier to buy the legislators individually than to buy the people.
Ms. Whitman, your question. How are you going to improve the productivity and the effectiveness of the New Jersey government so that investment in our institution and supporting infrastructure results in a stronger base for the next century?
Well, Ron, that's why I feel it is so absolutely necessary to do the performance audit of every single agency in state government. Because once you do that, you then move this government onto performance-based budgets, which means you have targets and goals against which you can measure the performance of government. And you report back to the people on a regular basis on what's happening within those departments and agencies. It's been done before. In Massachusetts, Republican Governor Bill Weld took over there, instituted that, was able to close a significant budget gap, not by raising taxes, but by lowering taxes. The same kind of procedure was taken in Michigan. Governor Engler there did the same sort of thing. It can be done and it can work, and it gives you standards against which you can measure performance, and then you can see that government is doing what you want it to do for you and not just continuing programs that have been in existence for a long period of time and no one's bothered to check them. I've also called for a meaningful sunset commission to review both regulations and programs after 5 years.
Mr. Wallwork, your rebuttal.
Well, I think what the main thing that the governor has to do is to know about state government and use the line item veto. As a conservative businessman, I know I've had to downsize budgets, I've had to tighten my belt, and so has everybody, working men and women throughout the state of New Jersey. There's no question that state government has to be cut, and that's why I am for a 4% cut every year to wipe out the $2.2 billion Florio tax increase that's really killed the economy and killed the jobs. But beyond that, we have to create jobs in the state of New Jersey by cutting the unnecessary rules and regulations and doing away with the punitive fines and fees that we have, so we can put the welcome mat out for business. Business can flourish in the private sector, and then people will have hope and the opportunity for jobs. That's what this election is all about, in my judgment.
Mr. Edwards, your rebuttal.
Well, let me explain something about this auditing and performance audits. I tried performance audits when I was the Attorney General, and having the staff inside look at how things are run is like watching having the fox watch the chicken coop. We have an auditor. We're not increasing a bureaucracy. We spend $5 million on that auditor. But that auditor doesn't do performance audits. They do financial audits to check where the money was stolen and what the topic it was spent for. We need to convert those dollars that are being spent to give us the information we need so we can really reduce and get waste and abuse out of government and give the taxpayers the services they pay their taxes for and the fees they pay for permits that they pay for.
All right, Mr. Edwards, this is a question for you. You believe, as do your opponents for themselves, that each of you would be a better candidate for governor of New Jersey than your two opponents. Please name one quality or ability you believe you possess that would be beneficial to New Jersey that you think your opponents do not have.
My entire set of life experiences. I grew up in a single-parent household. I worked my way through high school, through college, scholarships to college and law school. I've had to make my own way. I've started a law firm, run it very successfully, a small service business. Councilman, legislator, counsel the governor, attorney general. I've run the Department of Law and Public Safety, $350 million budget and 10,000 employees. I've established an international and national law firm that wasn't in New Jersey over the last 3 years and created 100 jobs. Probably the biggest thing I have going for me, though, Rolland, is I've been there, I understand how it works, I know what I've done wrong, I also know what we did right, and I know how badly New Jersey is broken. I have the background and the skill to deal with being the chief executive officer of a 65,000 employee, $15 billion service business. And I do not believe either of my opponents have that wide breadth of background. They all bring something to the table, but they don't bring it all. I'm ready to be the next governor of the state of New Jersey.
I would remind the audience, please, to not respond that way. It takes time away from your candidates. A follow-up question, Mr. Edwards. Will you support the party's nominee no matter who it is?
Absolutely, no matter who the party's nominee. Any one of the people that are sitting at this table will be better than Jim Florio. The state of New Jersey has been brutally, and that brutal breaking has been about people's lives. We have people whose houses are being foreclosed because there are no jobs and they can't support their family. We have people being shot and carjacked on the street. We have children not getting an education. Fundamental things about government that Jim Florio has broken. And we need to do those things well, and we need to get out of the other businesses that government has been in. That's another thing I've learned over these years.
Ms. Whitman, your rebuttal.
The most important thing that I bring to the office of governor is independence, an understanding of state government, but no IOUs to anyone, and a real commitment to bring the people into the process. That is what's got to change fundamentally. We're not talking about managing the current government we have just a little bit better. We're talking about creating a different government to manage, one that understands its responsibility to the people of the state of New Jersey, one that's not afraid to watch downsizing occur. So we continue to, or we start, as we haven't been doing it over the last 3.5 years, to give the people the services they deserve for the hard-earned dollars they put into state government.
Mr. Wallwork, your rebuttal.
Rolland, I think that leadership, and I've had it in the military, I've had it in business, and I've had it in the government. I think leadership and integrity are the two most key elements that the governor has to bring to the office of governor. Beyond that, I'd like to address tonight to Governor Florio, because I think Governor Florio is probably watching in tonight, and I want to urge Governor Florio to come clean to the public. He has an obligation to come forward to the public and stand in a press conference and explain what went on with the Turnpike bond issues, why Mr. Salima resigned today, and put the full facts on the table so the public can be evaluating these facts and we can determine from Governor Florio what's going on. We know we have a mess in New Jersey. I think he has to address that.
Your time is up, but the next question is for you. I have asked some of my journalist colleagues around the state to fax me questions that they might have for any of you candidates. So this one comes from John McGowan of the Courier-Post of Camden.
Well, John's a nice fellow.
Here's his question.
Maybe he's not so nice.
Where do you get the question?
Where do you get the question?
If there is no dramatic, sustained economic turnaround in the state, as it now appears likely, would you, under any circumstances, consider raising major state taxes rather than cut essential state services?
Absolutely not. The problem that we have facing not only the state of New Jersey, but facing the nation, is the fact that we've had too much taxes. We have to reduce spending. We have to then expand jobs in the private sector. And more taxes are just going to drive business out of the state of New Jersey. We're not going to be competitive. In New Jersey, what we have to have are manufacturing jobs. We have to have people creating things. Once they buy something for $1,000, and let's say then they create something that's worth $2,000, sell it out of state to Pennsylvania or Florida, then we get $2,000 back. We've gained $1,000 now in our economy. So that's how we strengthen our economy, because we have to bring money into the state of New Jersey to make us wealthy and therefore make us able then to create more jobs. So we have to have manufacturing jobs. We have to grow things in New Jersey with the farmers, export it to Europe, bring the money back in, and when that money comes back in, our economy is going to grow and we're going to thrive, we're going to have jobs, and we're going to create the jobs for the talented men and women of New Jersey. I understand that, and that's what I'm going to do as governor.
Ms. Whitman, a 30-second rebuttal.
When you look at the problems that Governor Engler faced in Michigan, where out of a $9 billion budget, he faced a $1 billion shortfall, and he was able to close that by doing two things: cutting taxes and stimulating the private sector. And he did that by putting this performance-based budgeting and by privatizing services. That's the way we're going to get to an economy that can sustain the state of New Jersey. We are in a very competitive environment. We've got to be able to hold the businesses we have here. We've got to be able to attract new businesses in. We're not going to do that by raising taxes.
Mr. Edwards.
Jim Florio raised $2.8 billion in taxes and took the finest economy in this nation and ruined it. The answer is not raising taxes. We need to cut some taxes. I'm supposed to cut them now by June 30th of this year. My opponents have not. They're talking about what they might do at some point in time in the future. 4 taxes, personal income tax and 3 business tax reductions now. We can only grow out of this problem. If we try to repeat what you did and tax ourselves out of it, New Jersey will be starving to death, literally.
Ms. Whitman, the next question is for you. Education is an issue that each of you have addressed in the past, and you will probably continue to address in forums like these before the primary. You know that without an educated workforce, opportunities diminish. What will you do about education reform in New Jersey?
Very first thing you have to do for the education in the state of New Jersey is get politics out of it. It has no place in education in the state of New Jersey. Then we have got to establish core curricula standards, so it doesn't matter where a child goes to get an education in this state. They get the same basic level of education, and that's good enough to ensure that upon graduation, they can either go out and get a self-supporting job, or they can go on to further learning and be mainstreamed. If we do those things, then I believe we ought to also recognize that every school district in this state pulls from different socioeconomic groups. They have different problems to meet, different needs. We ought to allow for and encourage site-based management, community-based management, which means that you have the teachers and the parents and the administrators in that school district who put the programs together to deliver the education that the state has agreed needs to be there. But most importantly of all, we have got to have accountability in the system so that we know how every dime of the taxpayers' money is being spent within the public school system. What's happened with the QEA, Quality Education Act, as the governor described it, has been a travesty in this state.
A follow-up, where do you stand on the current structure of the state school aid system?
Right now, I believe the most important thing is to ensure that we get a level playing field in terms of getting a quality education and core curricula standards out for every student in this state. I believe there's enough money in the system now to deliver quality education to all our students. The problem is we haven't had accountability, we haven't set standards. Until we do that, we're just going to see a continuing waste of money, which is what's happened. When you have a Department of Education that says that they may never know where 50 cents out of every new QEA dollar went, you know that we have very serious problems.
Mr. Edwards, a rebuttal.
I hope the audience and the listening audience through the TV will call for Mrs. Whitman's education plan, and I hope they'll call for my plan for New Jersey's future and make a honest comparison between the two. They are significantly different concepts about how we approach education in this state. We need to fundamentally change it, and I mean fundamentally change it, not tinker with it. Our problem isn't we need more standards. Our problem is Trenton has been running those systems as opposed to the communities and the neighborhoods designing a system that works. We need charter schools and we need choice within the public school system, not a voucher system.
Mr. Wallwork, your response.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we have to stress the basics in the early grades. Kids have to have success by the time they're in 3rd grade. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Because then they can build on success. They can say, boy, I can do it, and they'll go out and do it. So we have to encourage the early grades to make sure that kids achieve that success. I know as a conservative businessman, if I get an employee coming in that is basically skilled in reading, writing, and arithmetic, I can train that person. I've taken truck drivers, people working behind the counter, and they've become inside salespeople, outside salespeople, and executives. So give us the basic training. Business can also then train those people for good jobs.
Mr. Edwards, you had mentioned television in your response moment. I neglected at the beginning of this program to thank the production of this debate by TKR and CTN, and we do appreciate all of their efforts. This question goes to you, Mr. Edwards. The increase in overt violent crime in our society is as much a concern to our citizens as is the decrease in ethics from those who commit the so-called white-collar crime. If you are the Republican candidate for governor, how would your platform address the multifaceted crime issue?
There's more fear on the streets of the state of New Jersey than there has ever been before. Crime is a story about Mrs. Flood from South Orange, who was shot and dragged out of her car in the middle of South Avenue. I made one promise in this campaign to all of the people of the state of New Jersey, and I haven't made many promises in public life or privately. And that is, after 4 years of an Edwards administration, the streets will be safer and crime will be reduced, I promise, or I won't run for re-election again. The criminal justice system is broken. I was the chief law enforcement officer for New Jersey as Attorney General. That controlled the police officers and the prosecutors. As governor, I'll have the jurisdiction over the entire criminal justice system. In my Back to Basics plan of New Jersey Future, it does deal with jobs and taxes and cutting spending, education and crime. The fundamental responsibilities of New Jersey state government. I have a program. Everybody get a copy of this plan, read it for yourselves, and see if we can accomplish a better quality of life for all New Jerseyans.
Ms. Whitman, response.
Well, Cary has said repeatedly that one promise he's made is the crime would go down were he to be governor. But when he was Attorney General, the spending in the AG's office went up over 80%, as in crime went 9%, according to the New Jersey Unified Crime Report. So there's a question right there. I have put out a blueprint for crime prevention in the state of New Jersey, and it's based on simple facts such as appointing judges who understand it's their responsibility to enforce the law, not to write it, a meaningful death penalty that's extended to those who mastermind the crimes that result in murder, and intervention at an earlier stage, boot camp for first-time juvenile offenders.
Mr. Wallwork.
All right, Rolland, I always voted for the death penalty when I was in the state Senate. I think we have to also take a look at what the parole board has been doing, because I think the parole board has been putting people out on the streets, and these are hardcore criminals. That's got to cease, and as governor, I would stop that. I would appoint tough judges and tough prosecutors. I was the only one in the state Senate that voted against Mr. Rolland Smith when he was put on the Supreme Court as the Chief Justice. 39 people voted yes, I voted no. Beyond that, I recognize, however, as an employer, that jobs are important. We've got to give people opportunity and hope and jobs, because that will then drive the economic situation and reduce street crime.
Mr. Wallwork, this question is for you. If you happen to be elected governor, what would you cut for? I repeat, if you happen to be elected governor, what would you cut first and why? And where would you generate revenue first and why?
Well, I would generate revenue first by cutting the unnecessary rules and regulations that are stifling business and killing jobs. The day after I'm elected, I'm going to appoint a task force of qualified men and women to go through all of the different rules and regulations that are stifling business and killing jobs in the state of New Jersey. As a business person, I know what the Division of Taxation does because I collect Division of Taxation monies. I have trucks on the road, so I know what the Department of Transportation and Motor Vehicle do. I've come up against the Department of Environmental Protection and Energy because I've removed 2 gasoline tanks out of the ground. I'm the only one who's run a business for 25 years. Mrs. Whitman has never had a job in the private sector. Cary's a lawyer. I know how the state government operates. Plus the fact...
I repeat that the time will be taken away from your candidates.
Plus the fact I have 16 years in the legislature. I know the nuts and bolts of state government. I'll use the line item veto to balance the budget.
Mr. Edwards.
I've already used a line item veto as counsel to the governor. I've cut state government. We came in the middle of a recession in 1982, and we moved New Jersey's economy forward like it has never moved before. The fundamental difference in this election is between people who can promise to do things and people who can do things.
Ms. Whitman?
The first promise I've made and the first cut I would go to is a 20% cut in the governor's staff, which has risen inordinately over the last 3.5 years. Followed that by a strong move toward privatization of the Sports and Exposition Authority, and we're going to see some major changes occur in government.
This next series of questions I will ask to each candidate. It's a bit of a different from what we were doing, and I would suggest that each has 30 seconds to answer any one of the 3 questions I'm going to put out to you.
How are we going to do that?
Watch. The candidates may choose to answer any question that they want, and I call these heart questions. You may listen with your intellect, but I ask you to respond with your heart. These are questions that generally, specifically have nothing to do with your political views, but they have everything to do with them, for they touch on your heart, your essence. So I must tell the audience that none of the candidates knew that I was going to ask this kind of question. The 3 questions are, and again, you may any one of the 3 questions. Given the choice of anyone in the world, whom would you want as your dinner guest and why? Question number 2, is there someone who over a short period of time significantly influenced your life? Who is it? Question number 3, if you were guaranteed a truthful answer to any one question, whom would you ask the question and what would you ask? So I believe in sequence it goes to Ms. Whitman.
Well, I'll take the first one because it's who would you want to have for one brief period of time for dinner, and quite frankly, I'd like my parents back. And I'd like to ask them about how going forward, how I'm doing, because they believed so deeply in the state of New Jersey and in the process of government. They believed that good government was the best politics, and I hope I have lived up to their standards, and I'd love to have that time with them.
Mr. Edwards?
My mother, for dinner, was raised...
Same question.
I was raised in a single-parent household. My mother has been my friend, my confidant most of my life, still is to this day. We have struggled a lot in order to survive and prosper. And myself and my brother and my sister have been able to do that. And I can think of no one that I would want to talk to more at any given point in time than my mother.
Mr. Wallwork?
Well, I'd have to say that my wife is an excellent cook, and I'd like to have my whole family there, but including beyond my family, I'd like to have Abraham Lincoln. I like and I love reading about Abraham Lincoln because of the trials and the tribulations and the leadership that he provided to this country during a period of very, very difficult times. He labored under extreme circumstances as a young man, and later as an older person, ran for office, was elected once to the U.S. Congress, then stepped out and came back in 1860 and became president. And if it weren't for Abraham Lincoln, we wouldn't have a Republican Party the way we have today. I think he's the great person. I'd love to have him and hear his wisdom.
I thank the candidates for their indulgence in that type of question. That concludes the first half of this style of moderator questions. We will take a short break for the folks watching on TKR and CTN, and we'll be back with audience questions in just a moment.
You're not happy with the report?
No.
You just got here, Paul.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
But we're having a meeting.
She's not in yet.
I'm okay, it's just a cold.
We've got a deadline to meet, and this is the kind of thing you hand me?
If someone who works for you is on drugs, you have to do it. Threaten to fire her.
We have to talk.
Make her choose between getting well and getting out.
The candidates forum. We will now take questions from the audience, and I remind the audience, please, that these are questions only. They are not political statements. I will be the heavy. If I believe you are making a political statement, I will remove the microphone and I will move to somebody else, because this is here for you to hear what the candidates have about an issue, not for what you think about that issue. Start with this gentleman here who raised his hand a moment ago.
Yes, thank you. All the candidates have talked about cutting state government. And one of the programs that I would like to see cut is the homestead rebate program. From my understanding, it costs $4 to $8 million to administrate this program. Why not just give the taxpayer a tax credit and eliminate the homestead rebate program as a political tool and save millions of dollars? Why take taxpayers' money, shuffle it through the administrative system, and then give it back to them so as to make it appear that you actually gave them something?
We have the gist of your question. Okay. Let's start with Mr. Wallwork.
Well, basically, when I was in the Senate, I voted against the homestead rebate being the individual check going to the individual. I said at that time in the state Senate we could save at least $2 million if the checks were sent directly to the municipality and the municipality put it on the local prop tax. I think that's the way it should be administered. I would keep the senior citizens and handicapped people. It's important for those people to maintain a decent quality of life in their home environment that they have, but I would cancel the rest out for the other people in the state to save the money.
Ms. Whitman.
I have said consistently that the most important thing is to ensure the economic stability of senior citizens on fixed income and the disabled. But I have also maintained that you cannot say to people that these programs are not going to be looked at. And if there's a better way to protect their economic viability in this state than taking money from them, processing it through the politicians in Trenton and sending it back to them, then I'm willing to look at that. And I think we ought to do that. And we ought not to be going around into groups and saying this program will never be touched or that program will never be touched, because when we get to Trenton and have to do the job, we will have tied our hands to the point that we can't accomplish anything.
Mr. Edwards.
The property rebate program, getting money directly to people, is the only really valid property tax relief program that any public citizen has ever received. We do not have to have the administrative bureaucracy that goes with it. It can be distributed back to the municipality by a credit on tax bills. It must be directly to the person. I've been through these political battles. I understand why the public doesn't believe when we play a shell game by giving money to other levels of government. That program must be protected for seniors and the disabled. And I'm sorry, Jim, there are people who are not seniors or disabled who have the same financial crisis and are being driven out of their homes, and it needs to be there for them too.
Your questions.
How would you enlist the cooperation of the legislature in following your plans of fiscal responsibility?
Start with you, Mr. Edwards.
I didn't quite.
I'm sorry. How would you enlist the cooperation of the legislature in following your plans of fiscal responsibility?
Thank you. First, I'm assuming I'll have a Republican legislature, which we have now. Second, I spent 4 years as a counsel to Tom Kean. My job was to move his programs through a Democratic legislature. We had 450 bills that the governor wanted adopted over that 4-year period. We passed, and I shepherded through 420 of the 450. I know how that system works. I clearly know how to exercise the executive power to help it move those programs forward, and I don't think my opponents do.
Ms. Whitman.
I look forward to a very productive working relationship with the legislature. I already have had that in the past. I've spent a lot of time, Jim has criticized it, but I've spent a lot of time working with them, helping to get them elected. And because I believe that Republicans have provided better government to the state of New Jersey. And quite frankly, when they don't go along with us, if I have the right ideas, I'm going to go to the people and put the pressure on them through the people to get them to respond to what the people want them to do. Because this is going to be a government that does things together in order to make things work.
Mr. Wallwork.
Well, number one, Cary talked about all the bills he passed through, but he never told you that he shepherded the JUA bill through the legislature, too. But setting that to one side, I think that any governor has the power of office, and I will be working with Republicans and Democrats for the best interests of the people of the state of New Jersey. I think that the people, when they respond to good programs, the legislature will certainly be out there to vote those types of programs through. I know that I'll be working with a Republican legislature. They've already rolled back $600 million of the package. I'm going to join with them to roll the other $2.2 billion back.
Young man here.
My question is for Mr. Edwards. I've been watching the debates recently, and when I've been watching them, I've seen that you've talked about crime and that crime has dropped while you were Attorney General. Recently, today, I was rather disenchanted to open up the paper and find out that you admitted that crime actually went up while you were Attorney General. Is that true? And I'd like to know the real story on that issue. Did crime go up while you were Attorney General?
Mr. Edwards?
During my years as counsel to the governor and attorney general, crime reduced in the state of New Jersey by index crimes over 14%. During the period of time that I was attorney general, we increased arrests over 11% over the previous period and more than the present administration. Crime, by measurement of statistics, stayed stable in the period of time, actual crime, from the point that we reduced it. I like to take credit for both the years that I had in helping Tom Kean set the public policy and my years as Attorney General.
Ms. Whitman, a rebuttal or not?
I have no response
Mr.
to that.
Wallwork?
I think that statistics are very hard to break out, quite frankly, and to evaluate statistics. I think what we have to do is make sure that the governor is tough on crime, sets the tone, people know that they're going to be put in jail, the hardcore criminal, and 6% of the criminal population, those people are creating 90% of the crime. We've got to put them in jail and keep them there, and I think then we have to get back, as I said before, to reducing the drug problem, a whole host of things, but in my opinion, facts and figures like that are very difficult to interpret.
I'll remind the audience I will not be able to get to all of you. I will try to get to as many as we possibly can. Try to keep your questions non-candidate specific so that everybody has a chance to answer. Your question.
Okay, how would you get the people involved in the government? Would you hire someone like a bunch of United We Stand people to assist you in helping us out? Or would we be...
No commercials allowed either.
Okay. Or would we be... How would we be able to get involved and help out? You know, because not only one person thing, it's all of us involved in this whole thing.
Ms. Whitman, you'd like to start?
Well, one of the first things that I'm supposed to do when I've talked about doing the management audit is to do it in a way that sets up a committee made up of someone from within the department of agency, someone from the governor's office, and people who are general citizens. Once we have established what the goals are for that agency, then you go out to the public and you hold public hearings and say, is this what you want out of this department or agency? Is this the way you envision it working? And you do that and you go back to the people on a regular basis to report how government is doing against the performance audits, against the budgets, and you keep a regular communication.
Mr. Edwards, Ms. Buttle.
It is vitally important that the public and the governed support the government. You will have, and Jim Florio has proven this emphatically, he never includes the governed in the government. No leader, particularly a governor of a state as complex as New Jersey, can hope to succeed unless the people are participating in the government, or the government will fail. We need to bring all walks of life, not just United We Stand, but everybody in New Jersey with their expertise into the solutions to the problem. If we don't, they become part of the problem.
Mr. Wallwork.
I think that's one of the big problems facing our state. And I'm for initiative and referendum because I want the public, people, to take back their government. I want to make sure that we have term limits. And I think that's another very important thing, to make sure that we have the politicians swept out and let them operate under the laws that they've created as civilians, so to speak. I would have, as governor, open meetings around the state to hear input and suggestions from public. And also, I would have an expanded business council because I want to hear from the working men and women, business leaders throughout the state of New Jersey, how to create more jobs.
Time's up. Your question, sir.
I feel that trust is an extremely important issue today in politics. If you're elected governor, how can I trust that you will do what you're telling us you will do after it's over?
Mr. Edwards, like to start with?
I had a similar question in a Chamber of Commerce meeting not long ago, in which somebody said, why don't politicians tell the truth? It's vitally important. When they get there into office, they have a tendency to say, I didn't know, I didn't understand, I wasn't informed, something changed. I promise you, I understand what's going on in state government. I understand what the problems and how the system works. And I will never come back to the people of the state of New Jersey and say, I didn't know and I didn't understand. And I'm making no representations right now that I don't understand and I don't know.
Ms. Whitman.
No politician in this day and age can present. The public is not going to be aware of the promises they make and the commitments they make to the public during the course of a campaign. And the one thing that is going to be absolutely true, that if someone goes into office in this day and age and doesn't keep those promises, they are out at the next re-election. That is how it should be. That's how the system works. And nobody who stands before you should ever presume for one single second that they're going to be able to pull a con game on people of the state of New Jersey. It doesn't work. You've proved it time and time again.
Mr. Wallwork.
Well, as governor, I would support strongly a recall measure for the governor and any other elected official, because I think that's the ultimate in accountability. I think trust. I'm not a politician. I'm a business person. I did serve 16 years, but I stepped out of the legislature and ran a business for the last 10 years. But when I was in the legislature, I had a record of integrity. I'm very proud of that record, and I can build on that record. I'm running because I'm concerned about the working men and women and all the people in the state of New Jersey. I'm qualified to do the job. I'm dedicated with my leadership training. I'll make a good governor. I'll be a governor you can be proud of.
Question here.
As the owner of a small farm, what proposals do you have to preserve the farming industry in New Jersey, where farmers are the most highly taxed of any state in the nation?
Mr. Wallwork, like to start?
Well, I think legitimate farmers are supposed to be and should be protected. I don't believe have a farmland assessment that is a sham. But by the same token, as I mentioned before, the small farmers should be producing things and then selling them, and selling them hopefully out of state or selling them to a canner, so then we can create wealth and help the people in the state of New Jersey. I think that what we have to do is make sure that those farmers have whatever incentives we can give them and help them in the certain atmosphere that we have.
Ms. Whitman? Did you respond already? I've lost my track. Please.
No, there's Cary. I'm proud to be part of what puts the garden in Garden State, and is part of an industry that supports over 25,000 people directly, 300,000 people indirectly. Farming is a great and proud tradition in the state of New Jersey, and there is not a single farm in this state that could survive without farmland assessment. Any Farm Bureau person will tell you that. We must continue farmland assessment. I started the farmland preservation program, was instrumental in getting that started in Somerset County. We need to also look for ways where we can link the farmer to industry that is growing and attracted into this state so they can work together.
First thing I'd do is eliminate the farmland assessment for non-farmers. The second thing I would do, in New Jersey we have a minimum wage that's higher than the national average. That minimum wage makes New Jersey's farmers uncompetitive. Within the next 3 to 4 years, 5 years, we will probably lose every farm in the state of New Jersey because they can't compete even with our neighbors in Delaware, in Pennsylvania, and if we don't do something to allow our farmers to be competitive in their business, we will have no more farms in the state of New Jersey.
All right, please stand up over here. So we step out of the way for the camera for this lady here who's signing for everybody.
As you all know, we have the highest tax burden of most states in the region. Our taxes are driven by the cost of education, and the cost of education are basically driven by our school board elections. It's a non-participatory process. Would you endorse making the school board elections run concurrent with the general election? We get real public participation and drive the costs down.
Ms. Whitman, I'd like to start with that, please.
Well, one of the first things, besides doing that, and I think it's important, but if you couldn't get that far, you should extend the hours beyond 3 to 8, because those people who work in a swing shift, 3 to 9, excuse me, don't get there, as I well know. That has to happen, but more importantly, to bring down the cost of education in the state of New Jersey, we have got to get accountability back into the system. We have allowed the government to throw money at a problem and walk away from it as if they presumed that money in and of itself was going to make the difference. That isn't going to make the difference. We have got to have standards. We've got to have accountability.
Mr. Edwards?
In this educational reform package is a community-based redesign of our system to meet the demographics and the character of each community. In order to do that, you've got to have the community participating in it fully. And you need to promote not only voting in school board elections and making them at the time when other people vote for general elections, but even getting a higher turnout than that. And we spend, what, up to 80% of our local property taxes go for schools. The most onerous expenditure we have, we spend the most per capita in the nation. And we've got one of the most mediocre school systems. We must correct that.
Mr. Wallwork.
Basically, what we'd have to do is change what you're voting on. Because actually, when you vote, you cannot touch the teacher's salary, you cannot touch other expenses. So if you vote the budget down, then the local government can only do so much in a very small, modest cut. I would certainly support putting the questions of school elections at the November election. But I think unless we understand that really the voting has to be completely revamped. So when you go to the polls, the vote is meaningful, then the people will respond. And I think then we have to make sure that the people are watching how the money's being spent to make it spent wisely and well.
Over here.
I have a question on campaign reform. If elected governor, would you work to eliminate the role of soft money in financing political campaigns?
Absolutely, I would. Mr. Wallwork, you start, please.
Absolutely, I would. I'm a very stickler on campaign fund reform because I believe that you have so much money recycling through and all the various groups and all the various political parties and the special interest parties, and I've seen it in this primary election. Where county organizations have money, other organizations, the Victory 93 committee was formed in Essex County supporting a candidate. I don't know where this money is coming from and how it's being spent. So I think that also I would privatize the auditing in this because I think we need faster auditing of the ELSC money, and we could do it with private accountants.
Ms. Whitman?
Me?
Yes, please.
I have been a long-time supporter of campaign finance reform, and you can go back to my Senate race when I had a very detailed program for campaign finance reform. But one of the things we have got to get at is not just controlling who puts money in, which has to be declared publicly so everyone can understand it. We have got to get at the costs of running for government. I mean, it is staggering and I think unconscionable that in the race for the United States Senate, Bill Bradley spent $12 million. We have got to put a cap as we have in the gubernatorial race, and that's appropriate.
Mr. Edwards.
We do have a cap in the gubernatorial race, but there's another fact. The public needs to know where candidates stand and where they come from. The only vehicle that's available to them is the various medias that are there, and they're terribly expensive. No, we should not have soft money, and yes, we should remove soft. But we also have to have communication vehicles. The only thing I care about as a candidate is the ability for each voter to know who I am in detail, what I stand for, and what my record is in detail. But I want them to know that of my opponents also.
Time's up.
And we don't have the vehicles available to accomplish that.
Your question?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being state-funded abortion on demand, 10 being ban on abortion in New Jersey, how would you rate yourselves?
Mr. Wallwork, like to start, please?
Well, I don't really understand how we're going to rate that on 1 to 10. This is a very, very personal question. And I'm pro-choice. I believe that every woman has the right to be guided by her own religious beliefs and by her own moral values and her doctor's advice in making her judgment and making her mind up in this very highly personal question.
Mr. Edwards?
I'm also pro-choice, and I think Jim summed it up very well for me.
Ms. Whitman?
I've been pro-choice a long, long time, and there is an area where I believe that those of us who are pro-choice and those who oppose abortion can work together to make things better for everyone, and that's better education to prevent unwanted pregnancies, better sex education, and better support for groups that help women who get pregnant outside of wedlock and choose to bring that child to term. And whether the problem is that they can't live at home, there are groups that support that, or if they feel they can't raise the child after birth, there are groups that support adoption option. We ought to be supporting those groups to try to prevent the need of ever having to think of abortion as an alternative.
Question over here.
If you don't admit to being politicians, you're at least observers of the political scene. And in that capacity, I'd like to know what you think, honestly, of Ross Perot, and what you think of us, the people of United We Stand America in New Jersey, and how that might relate to your campaigns.
I'll toss it out. Anybody want to take that one?
Sure, I'll start with that one. I don't know Mr. Perot personally, but what he started was something that's very exciting for the country. The fact that we're empowered again, and it really started here, I have to say, back when the good governor came in and slammed everybody with a $2.8 billion tax increase, and people suddenly realized that we have to get involved. And you know, quite frankly, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a politician because this should be a proud profession. Politicians should be people who are respected, who are honest, who are there to do the public service and then get out. And that can only happen with the support of the people.
Mr. Edwards?
Ross Perot has brought something very exciting into politics and public life. and that is people. And people back into the political process, which is what we need. And I applaud him, and I applaud all of you for participating. It's part of that message and getting it to people and having them interested in where we go. I, too, believe that why politicians are vilified has to do with trust and honesty. But I'm proud to be a politician, a public official, and I think there's a proud heritage of people such as Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, the leaders of this country that made this country great, all who were politicians.
Mr. Wallwork.
Well, I have a Ross Perot haircut, but I do have a problem with Ross. Ross graduated from Annapolis, and I graduated from West Point, so that's one problem I have.
I have his ears, too.
But seriously, I think that I'd rather have Ross Perot sitting in the White House tonight than what we have sitting in the White House tonight. I've also found, Rolland, as I've campaigned around the state, that the people that are affiliated with United We Stand are great people. They're the salt of the earth, and I'm very proud that you're participating in this nomination.
This will be the final audience question, then you'll have time for a 90-second recap, each of you.
In terms of reducing crime, one of the divisions that our police and all law enforcement people have been strapped with an awful lot of administrative paperwork, and that we've lost an awful lot of police protection because of it. What would you do as government to make our police policemen again rather than administrators?
Ms. Whitman.
I hope you will write and ask for, or call and ask for, my blueprint for crime prevention, because that's part of what's addressed in there. One of the things we have to do is work with the police. And there are many instances, again, that's a perfect opportunity to look at where we can start to bring other people into the process. Do you need trained police officers to shuffle the paper, or are they better off out on the street where we really need them? We also need to protect our police from unwanted and untoward lawsuits when something happens and they're in the process of pursuing a felon. We've got to give them the support they need to do the job they need to do.
Mr. Wallwork.
Well, I'm very proud that I have the silver card from the Montclair PBA and the Milburn PBA because of my work in the legislature. But I want to see, Governor, a task force of police officers giving me recommendations as to what should be done. As an example, should we lower the juvenile delinquency age from 18 to 16? I also want to see continued training for all ranks of the police. Right now, they only get training in batons and pistol. We need sensitivity training, shoot, don't shoot type of training, and a whole host of training to make those police officers better protectors of the public.
Time's up, Mr. Edwards.
Jim, I participated in Shoot, Don't Shoot, and I participated in putting some of those initial training programs together. I have a program here that requires the putting of 4,000 officers on the streets of this state, paid for by the people who commit the crimes and the people they arrest, and not the taxpayers. Nobody understands the burdens that a cop faces on the street who's running for governor today than I do. I am prepared to move the administrative burdens off of the local cop, and I am prepared to put the local cop into a real community policing mode on every street, in every community in this nation, in this state.
You now each have 90 seconds in which to sum up your feelings about any issue that concerns you. We will start with candidate number 1, Ms. Whitman.
I think this is an extraordinarily exciting time for the state of New Jersey. We have a real ability in this election to take back our state for ourselves. We have got to make a commitment that we are talking about creating the best New Jersey that we can possibly have. This is about what's happened over the last 3.5 years. It is about the fact over 300,000 people have lost their livelihood. It is about the fact that 1 out of every 110 households had to declare bankruptcy last year. That's homes and families. It's about individuals who are suffering every day. And we need to make a statement loud and clear, not just for New Jersey, but for the nation, because the nation is going to be watching this election, to say that the kind of policies we've seen that have resulted in increased taxes and driven businesses out of the state and people out of their homes is not what the state of New Jersey wants. But we have to understand that we come to that with the need to have someone in leadership who has the vision and has the courage and has the independence to say, I don't owe anybody anything, that I'm going to work with and for the people of the state of New Jersey. That's what we have to look for as we go forward, to ensure that we make this state #1 again. Not #1 in taxes, not #1 in regulations, not #1 in unemployment, but #1 in ideas, innovation, and growth. That's why I'm running for governor and why I ask for your support on June the 8th and then again on November the 2nd. Thank you very much.
Mr. Edwards, 90 seconds.
Thank you very much, Rolland. Thank you for being here and taking your time to participate in this. All of you who've come this evening to listen to us candidates talk about our ideas, visions for New Jersey's future. I believe there are significant differences between all of us. It's your obligation and my obligation to tell you those differences. I believe there's differences in experience, in ideas, and in a vision for what New Jersey should be. I've laid that out in a plan that I want you to get a copy of. You should make those comparisons about what that difference is. But ultimately, this is about who has the skill and the ability and the knowledge to have a vision about what New Jersey should be, to make that vision the public policy of this state, and then to make that public policy a working reality as governor, because only the governor can administer the laws of the state. This is a campaign about getting back to the fundamentals that government does and should do well. It's about creating jobs and reducing taxes and spending. It's about an education system in which we pay the highest in the nation per student and giving us the best education system for the dollars that we spend. It's about creating a crime-free environment in this state, where 9 out of 10 New Jerseyans believe they can't walk on the streets of this state, where 51% of the people in New Jersey believe that if they could move out of New Jersey, they would. We need to create a new and a better New Jersey. I have a plan for New Jersey's future. I have the vision, the capacity, and the experience to make that plan a reality. I want your vote and your support on June 8th, and I want it on November 2nd, so you and I can create a new New Jersey for all of us. Thank you very much for having me.
Mr. Wallwork.
Ron, I want to thank you and TV6 and the United We Stand organization. This has been a great forum, and I think we've had a lot of fun. I think in the final analysis, what the Republican vote is looking for is who's the best candidate that can beat Jim Florio in November. Who can get under the hood of that car, so to speak, and fix state government because Florio, the driver, has broken it. And I would submit to you that Mrs. Whitman, who's a very liberal person, tax and spend, voted 4 times to raise her salary in 5 years as a freeholder, raised the budget from $50 million to $95 million in the 5 years she was there, a 90% increase. That's not the type of tax and spend and Liberal Party candidate should be bearing, because it's going to be easy meat for Jim Florio in November. I'm a conservative Republican. I'm proud to be a conservative. And I want to have less government, less spending, and less taxes. And I'll be happy to go up against Jim Florio because he has a lot of problems. I mentioned about his bond problem tonight. He should come clean with the American public, the New Jersey citizens, right away with a press conference. I don't have those kinds of problems. I have no political baggage. I've run a business successfully for 25 years. I have a good, solid record in the legislature. I have military leadership principles. I bring a very different blend to this type of race. And I want to be your governor. I want to be your candidate after June 8th, because I will be a governor you can be proud of.
I'd like to thank the candidates for participating. I'd like to thank you, our live audience, for being here and participating with your questions. I'd also like to thank our television audience. We appreciate you being part of this candidates forum. And don't forget now to vote. I'm Rolland Smith. Thank you for joining us.
Good joining you.
Okay.